Hello and welcome to Who's the Bossk? It is a Star Wars podcast from laughingplace.com. My name is Mike Celestino. I am your host. I am the lead Southern California reporter and editorial director for Star Wars content at Laughing Place. This is episode number 155 of Who's the Bossk, and it is a very unusual episode for several reasons. First of all, the episode that I had planned for this week could not happen for a couple of reasons of its own. And I was just going to take the week off and say, see you next week on Twitter. But as fate would have it, we got some news in the Star Wars and Disney parks community. In fact, I was exposed to this news. You can go and watch a live stream on the Laughing Place YouTube channel where we're broadcasting right now. You can see my live in-person reaction, real-time reaction to this news on one of the live streams on the Laughing Place YouTube channel. And it's not great news for people who are fans of a certain aspect of Star Wars and Disney parks. And the good thing about it, though, is that I knew the absolute perfect people to talk about it with as kind of an initial reaction, because this just dropped less than 3 hours ago. I think it was 12:15 exactly this afternoon when Laughing Place was allowed to drop it. And I wasn't aware in advance. We had gotten a heads up, but I think my coworkers just kind of wanted to see, not in any kind of cruel way, but wanted to get my genuine response to it, telling me live on screen. So you can go and find that on the YouTube channel. But my guest for this episode of Who's the Bossk, which we will be discussing a very specific topic, is my guests are the three hosts of the Heroes of the Halcyon podcast, Martin, Kristine, and Drew. Guys, I said this before we started rolling here, before we went live. I'm afraid to ask, but how are you today?
It's a tough day. I mean, this is not the news any of us wanted to hear, of course, but extremely grateful for all the people we've met, such as yourself.
Yeah, a little bit in shock, too, I have to say, for sure.
Shocked? Yeah, I said that I was both shocked and not shocked, which I think is, I'm halfway between those two ideas. And yeah, one of the things that I've been thinking about the last couple hours is that I wouldn't know you guys if not for the Galactic Starcruiser, which is our topic of conversation today. But before we get into the news itself, I want to ask you about how your podcast has been going. Now, last time I talked to you, Drew, we were still pretty sure this was the only Galactic Starcruiser focused podcast out there. Is that still accurate to your knowledge?
I would say it is still accurate to the best of our knowledge, as I always say. Yes.
I've never actually considered that, but we probably have a lock on that forever now.
Yeah, probably do. Yeah.
It would be very odd if someone started one now. So you guys may be the only Galactic Starcruiser podcast in the history of podcasts, which is a very unique honor. And then what's been going on the show? Now, I've been on your show a couple times. You guys have now been on my show a couple times. But any highlights recently from recent episodes of Heroes of the Halcyon?
Yeah, we just got back from the May 4th voyage, which was incredible. And now we're even more grateful for that. But it was a very jam-packed voyage. Lots of people, lots of friends, people we've met on the podcast because of the podcast that we got to see in person. We had our own muster meetup for all the Galactic Starcruiser super fans, which was amazing. So yeah, we have been busy.
That's great. Our mutual friend Nick Tierce was on the show last week, and I think we chatted briefly about that voyage that you guys went on, the May the 4th voyage. And Nick has brought up the great point of like wanting to hear more about how it went, because it was so jam-packed full of super fans of the Galactic Starcruiser. So what did you take out of that experience? How was this different from your, I think, previous two voyages, right?
Yeah, I think the main difference, at least for me, was that it wasn't as much story focused. There were a lot of people that this was their first voyage, but a lot of us that were there, this was our second or third. So it wasn't maybe necessarily as story focused as it was more of celebrating.
Yeah.
You know,
That's a great way to
celebrating
put it.
each other,
Mhm.
celebrating the cast and the crew. I mean, everyone was just so excited to be there. And so many people were so extra in the best possible way.
Yeah, the
That's awesome to
opening.
hear. Go ahead.
Yeah, the opening when Captain Kevin welcomes everybody on the Star Cruiser. No spoilers for anybody, of course, but when Captain Kevin welcomed everybody, I think that clapping and that ovation lasted for at least 30 to 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you could see that the cast appreciated that they knew we all love this experience as much as we do, and it was a great one to be on.
That's awesome. It sounds fantastic. I'm sorry that I couldn't make it out to that, but I'm so glad you got to have this experience. And it sounds like it was pretty memorable even before we got this news today that this voyage for May the 4th with all your friends and acquaintances there was a special one, and then now this kind of drops on us. So we're going to skip the regular Star Wars headlines segment this week. We're also I'm pushing the 5 Star Wars questions to the end of the episode because I kind of want to jump right in here and get our reactions to this. And the only real Star Wars headline that we're going to talk about in this episode is the just announced this afternoon upcoming closure in September of Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser after just opening a little bit over a year ago in March of 2022. So my first question for you guys, since you are really I think the best people to talk to about this, first of all, how did you first hear about the news this afternoon? Where did you come across it? Who alerted you to it? And then what were each of your initial reactions?
I think we both heard from Kristine
Yeah,
first, didn't we?
Kristine was just looking at something with an absolute shocked look on her face, and who died, Kristine?
Well, it was a text message from a mutual friend, and it was just one of those articles that, another kind of what I interpreted as another doom and gloom kind of article.
Yeah.
And my response back was, okay, who's the guy that wrote this, and does he really know what he's talking about?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, everything just exploded.
We had the news confirmed within a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Text messages and Instagram and just everything is just, yeah.
So what were your initial reactions to that once you confirmed the truth?
Honestly, I kind of had the same reaction you did, is shocked but not shocked.
Yeah.
But again, my personal feeling is, I mean, I'm just so grateful to have had this opportunity and lived it 3 times with my friends.
Yeah.
This experience changed me. It changed all of us. I'd say it changed everyone that went on it. So yeah, there's some shock, there's some loss. My first feeling, of course, goes to the cast members and the crew. We hope that they find other employment within Disney,
right,
expeditiously. But I just, my overwhelming feeling is just gratitude for having had this opportunity.
And some other folks in the chat here, I just want to point out, I think some of these might be folks that Patrick, let's see, Patrick Radiker says, hey, everybody, let's say it's Rabbi Cecilia Bayer. Is that another of your Halcyon friends?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And then our friends over at Skywalking Through Neverland said R.I.P. Gaia. I don't think Gaia is going to get killed off or anything.
No. Too
Oh,
good.
Yeah.
Hope they keep the dinner show. Yeah, we were saying on our Laughing Place stream earlier that maybe Gaia would get relocated over to Batu. I think that would be an interesting way to do it. And then Alexander Lee wanted us to say happy birthday or sing happy birthday. We can't get through the whole song, but happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy
birthday to you.
There you go.
Happy birthday,
apply the melody as you will. Yeah, so thank you everybody out there in the chat for joining us, and let's move on with the discussion here. So Martin, you were saying that you, like me, were both surprised and not surprised. I think after all these discounts that got announced and voyages canceled combined with other voyages, I don't think it was a huge surprise to anybody that this was a possibility. But I guess my question to you guys is, were there any other possible outcomes that you had predicted before just the entire thing was announced to be shutting down.
We had an episode earlier this year where we kind of batted things back and forth, and we kind of tried to figure out some alternatives that might happen ourselves. And the standard concepts that you see out in the community, that would they make it a Star Wars experience instead of an immersive overnight experience? Would they make it somewhat of a show like a Gaia's show and allow people to come on more frequently? Those are the sorts of things that we thought we might see a little bit before a closure announcement. And those were the things that behind the scenes we kind of thought, well, if we see some of those, that'll probably be the death knell. But we didn't see that. They just went straight to lowering in the discounts. And in the background, the other thing we've discussed is, well, maybe Disney is figuring out that the 30% that they were giving Disney Visa card holders, maybe that's the level that they thought it would be more sustainable. And that's what their plan was all along. But apparently that might not be the truth.
I guess not. Yeah. Did you have something to say there?
Yeah, I just think that we've kind of talked about this, including with you, that the design of this experience really doesn't have unlimited flexibility, though. I mean, with 100 rooms, this is a boutique experience. This is never something that they could lower to the cost of what a lot of people were wanting it to be price-wise. And we've heard people asking, why don't they just make it into a Star Wars hotel? Like we heard, there's no laundry facilities on site. There's a lot of reasons why they couldn't just turn this into a standard hotel.
Right.
But again, I mean, like Drew was saying, there were options, making it a day experience, that people could just literally, I am surprised that they didn't try to just paid excursions from Galaxy's Edge, walk around the Halcyon, do a couple missions, make it a day thing. They could charge a couple $100 for that. And I think that they would have a very long list of people willing to pay for that.
And when they announced that they were going dark midweek in recent episodes, again, I think Patrick, one of the people who was commenting, I think he was pointing out that these day excursions are something that could easily be something that maybe this is what their plan was, to try to increase some revenue and try to, help maximize their investment. But again, it doesn't look like that was the case.
So some other comments here in the chat from, let's see, Kenton Young. Do you guys know him or her? Sorry. Kenton says, hi. Abigail Burns says, so devastated by the news. Haven't gotten to go on yet and will be desperately trying to find a way onto the ship and figure out how to afford it before it closes. Yeah, we're going to be talking about what that process is going to be like in a bit here. Cecilia says she's baffled by why they didn't try some things and went straight to this. And then Rebecca from Laughing Place says she was surprised they didn't launch this type of experience as a multi-hour experience shuttled to and from Batu. Kyle, also from Laughing Place, said the discounts were slow played and that they could turn it into a hotel now, but they'd need to gut the engineering room and such. So yeah, it would be a very different experience. And then another mutual friend of ours, Jess Para, says she has new family because of this. Yeah, so many people have met and befriended each other. Patrick says the crew intake and prep building could be the house for future facilities to turn it into a standard hotel. I guess that's theoretically possible. So yeah, lots of different possibilities. The first thing that kind of struck me, the first thing I thought about when I heard the news this afternoon was it kind of proves the wrong people right for the wrong reasons. I'm sure you guys have had a lot of the same thoughts because, there have been people who, when this first got announced, have been angry about it for, ever since then, probably for, what you would call bad faith reasons. And yeah, they did turn out to be right. It did not turn out to be a long-term success in the way that you guys and I would have loved to see it. But I don't know. How would you explain to somebody, let's say there was somebody like that who had the wrong conception of what this is all about, but they were open to having their mind changed. How would you explain the ways in which this was not a success, but not for the reasons that they think it's not a success, if that makes sense?
You'll have to excuse the incredulous look on my face because I don't know that person exists.
Right.
Put it forward that it does. Let's talk about that.
Really, one of the points I would want to make is I have yet to hear anything bad about this experience from anyone that's been on it.
Right.
So
Right.
any complaints about this experience and any doom and gloom about this experience is someone who hasn't been. And I think that's kind of the problem Disney had. They had a messaging problem. They didn't know, and we've talked about this, and the phrase that we all kind of used is, how do you sell what's never been sold?
Yes.
And that's a problem. That's a challenge. We all laugh at how terrible the marketing was for this in the beginning, and it was terrible. But I sympathize, I empathize, I should say, with the challenge. How do you sell this? Until you just don't know.
And if I needed to describe the experience to somebody, I mean, I would start by saying, sure, it's 2 days that you're spending, and it is a lot of money. There is no arguing with that whatsoever. But it's the money pays for the actors, the great food, the great service you get, the experience on Batu and on day 2. It pays for the back end of the adventures that run as part of this experience. And without trying to explain and show somebody an example of that, it's kind of like the saying about the Matrix. No one can be can be told about the Matrix.
You have to see it first.
Yeah, exactly.
How much would you pay to stand on an actual Star Wars set with Star Wars characters and be written into that story?
Yeah.
How much would you pay for that? And that's basically what this is.
Yes.
It is a shame, and you guys made some great points, that I think there was a failure in marketing from the beginning. And I also totally agree with what you said, Martin, that there seemed to be a unified view, a fairly a consensus, I think is a good word for it, among people who had actually done this, that, I hadn't heard anything negative. I think there were a couple mixed reviews here and there, but by and large, everybody was pretty positive about this, of the people who actually got to experience. And all the naysayers were, either people who thought it was a terrible idea from the outset, or wanted to go and couldn't afford it. And that, that price point being the other big negative here, besides the marketing. Like our friends at Skywalking Through Neverland said, they posted about it on their socials. I think the biggest comment they got is they would love to go, but it's just too expensive. Yeah. So, and then both Cecilia here and our friend Tony are talking about the marketing as well in the comments. Did you guys have any response to that?
Well, I mean, that definitely was a challenge, and we talked about that from the beginning. And with each cruise being such a small amount of people, it's very difficult to even get that word of mouth part out.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've been talking about is the one thing that was truly a success out of this experiment is the non-toxic fandom that it created. It brought people that never LARPed before, never cosplayed before, people that were somewhat introverted. It brought all of us into a circle where we were all excited, not just for our own journeys, but for the journeys of the new friends we've made. That's a success.
Yeah.
I mean, there truly aren't very many experiences or even IPs that have that kind of success rate.
Yeah, that's really, really well put, and definitely one of the very positive things to come out of this whole experience. Now, going back to the negative, which unfortunately we do have to talk about, because I want to get your opinions on what we think are the actual reasons why this didn't pan out in the way that Disney would have preferred, and the way that we would have preferred. One point that Skywalking Through Neverland has brought up, and we talked about this earlier in the Laughing Place live stream as well, is the idea of the Halcyon being set in. Now, it has existed for hundreds of years within the timeline, but the story that you experience when you go on Galactic Starcruiser is set in the sequel trilogy, as opposed to the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy. When I first found out about Galaxy's Edge at Disney parks, I honestly was a little bit disappointed that they didn't do original trilogy. So I understand that, but I kind of came to get the reasoning behind that. What are your thoughts on the choice of the timeline or the period in the timeline for Galactic Starcruiser?
I can say that I'm an original trilogy guy. I mean, that is the heart and soul of Star Wars for me. I like the prequels, I like the sequels, but I'm an original trilogy guy. That being said, you just look at a recent Star Wars days they had at the Disney parks, and they had a live action Luke and Leia that you'd had photo ops with.
Right.
And I thought it looked silly. It'd be, for whatever reason, it's easier for me to accept a different performer playing Rey than it is for me to see a performer playing as Luke or Leia or Han walking around the ship. That for me would be a tougher sell. I mean, I get the emotional reason why people say original trilogy would be better. I get that. But in practicality, I think that'd be hard for people to attach to live.
Yeah, and the other part too is part of what makes the experience so good is you are part of that story. You are, I mean, again, for folks who haven't gone, you might not understand this, but you are very much a part of that story. And if Luke and Darth Vader and Han were running around, I'd be like, well, this wasn't in the movie. It wouldn't feel the same. So I get that maybe it might have attracted more people to come to the experience if it was the original trilogy, and maybe it wouldn't have turned off the people who are so against the new trilogy, for example. But I don't know that it could have been as successful as it has been.
Yeah, I think Jennifer Sharward here in the comments probably is aligned with what you were saying, Drew. Probably isn't a fan of the sequel trilogy and believes that too much of Disney Star Wars is tied back to that trilogy. Which, yeah, if you're not a fan of the sequels, you don't want to see like the stuff in The Mandalorian where they're connecting back to the cloning. I understand that point of view, but let's talk about then our, from our perspectives, what beside, we've covered marketing, we've covered the price. Are those the only two reasons why it didn't pan out? Is it just a failure from that end, or are there any other, from our genuine love of this experience, were there any other shortcomings that we can honestly point out that stick out to us, to you guys, or to me even?
It was price.
Yeah, I mean,
price.
I'm gonna go. We're super fans, so we're gonna have a real hard time being objective. but yeah, the marketing and the price. I mean, there's clearly an audience who are willing to pay a premium for travel experiences. I've been lucky enough to go on a couple of the 3-day Disney cruises on the Fantasy and the Dream, and those were packed. And those are very expensive. I get it. Those were overnight and going out of the country, and they were on the water. They were going to the Bahamas. I get it. But there's clearly an audience that is willing to pay for these type of premium experiences. But how do you get those people on the hook and show them that this is going to be the amazing time that it was? That's the challenge that they had.
It is a challenge, and it's unfortunate, but it kind of came down to people like you guys and me. I mean, I don't think either of us have the biggest audience in the world, but we do have a niche audience. I think your show and my little video series that I made, which didn't get a tremendous amount of views, but the people who saw it and enjoyed it really enjoyed it. And it gave you, I think, a broad idea of what the experience is really like without spoiling too much. Now, what has from the marketing, not that your job is to market this experience, but can you just talk a little bit about how you've gone about trying to spread the gospel of Galactic Starcruiser and kind of fill in the gaps that Disney may have left in getting the word out about this thing?
They didn't even really try. I mean, we meet people every single week that are Star Wars fans. I would say diehard Star Wars fans that have never even heard of this. That's never even heard of it.
Yeah.
And to us, that's ludicrous because we talk about it all the time.
Right.
But it's legitimately huge Star Wars fans that aren't even aware this exists. So they just didn't reach deep enough into the different pockets. Like, for instance, we were at Disney Springs during this recent visit, and the only Galactic Starcruiser messaging that I saw in all of Disney Springs was this, flyer on behind the registers in 2 different stores.
It's like they had given up on it already almost.
Yeah.
Huh?
And that's all that there really ever was.
Yeah.
So they just didn't know how to push that message. And again, I'm curious to hear what both of your thoughts are. But to me, the best way to explain Starcruiser is you're in the Star Wars universe, and a space pirate taps you on the shoulder and says, "I'm in trouble. I need you to help. Let's go on a mission." And you do. And that kind of gives the really fast synopsis of you're whisked away on a real Star Wars adventure. And you can't get that anywhere.
Yeah, and one of the things that we did to try to spread the gospel is we really dug into the experience. You're not able to make 54 episodes about a 2-day experience without trying to find all the corners of it. And one of the things that we did is we looked at things such as what stories you can tell through your costuming. I mean, Gabby Fleury, who played Vesta Scoundrel in our recent Voyage, went to insane lengths to tell a story with their costuming and the way they were presenting their character on the ship. They posted ways to interact with people. They really dug into that. We also just recently were talking with a recent guest, CC, about the spiritual aspect of it. Maybe it's not a religious aspect, not to go back to the gospel joke, of course, but when you're in an experience like together, and there's 80 of your friends that you just met, but you would take a bullet for. There is a communal sense of spirituality that really kind of goes into that, and those are the examples that we tried to say, that it's not just putting on a costume if you want and going with that space pirate. It's really involving yourself in that experience and seeing what you can do with that premise.
Well, and I think
or worse, the Star Wars hotel. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You guys know the pain of that. Go ahead, Kristine. I'm sorry.
No. I was going to say, I think one of the things that we did fairly early on is creating the sublight circle, which wasn't just us talking.
Yes.
I'm sure there was initially possibly that idea that, okay, so who do you three know at Disney, kind of a thing, as we're promoting this. Well, we went out and we found people who had been on Starcruiser and let them talk. Well, it's that kind of word of mouth that, like, don't just listen to us, listen to other people that have been on and are having not the same experience, but in the end, the same revolution within themselves that says, wow, this is something that, again, we joke all the time that this once in a lifetime experience that ends up turning into 2 and 3 voyages at the end.
We're all wearing CSL frequent flyer club shirts.
Well, I think that's a great segue to start getting into the positives of, I mean, you already have gotten into the positives of what made Galactic Starcruiser great. And I wanted to go back to a comment from Nate O'Shea here in the chat. He said he didn't think that the story timeline was a large factor. Just being in a Star War, to quote Arrested Development, to interact with these characters is amazing. And yeah, I think to me, the number one positive thing from my memory of my experience aboard the Galactic Starcruiser is the characters and the performers who inhabit those characters. And I also want to pay credit to the people working behind the scenes who came up with those characters and populated this ship with the story and all these different intermingling, all this interpersonal drama that plays out over those 2 days. Do you guys have anything besides what you've already talked about, which is plenty and wonderful? Was there any other positive notes that you want to point out about your 3 experiences?
How much time do you have, Mike?
Well, one thing that I did want to mention is on this May the 4th voyage, I think it was our second night, Anne Murrow Johnson was on the ship.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes. So, and any of you who don't know Anne Murrow Johnson, she's like second in command as far
creative
as
director,
as far as putting Galactic Starcruiser together. And it was at a time when the atrium was full of people. And, we were all excited, like, oh my gosh, look who it is. But on the same token, if you looked at the look on her face, she was, it seemed, from my interpretation, overjoyed at our joy of Starcruiser.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I hope, we talk about it all the time on our podcast, but we really hope that the cast, the crew, the creators, everybody behind the scenes, that they really get a sense of what this has done for people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not just a great scorecard at the end and we gave you 5 stars and it was awesome. It's the creativity and the like I said before, kind of the family that we've all created outside of that. That's really what the Star Cruiser is all about.
I'd like to say I want to throw a shout out to the folks in Imagineering and the Lucasfilm Story Group.
Yeah.
How complete this experience is really cannot be overstated. I mean, the design of the Halcyon itself, the design of the sets that you're in, it's so complete of an experience. It really is just an astonishing level of detail. No matter where you look, it's all feels completely real. I I can't I can't say how grateful I am for the care and they took. I mean, this was a wild gamble for Disney to take.
Yes.
This was an insane gamble for them to take. And I'm really, really grateful that they took it.
Grateful is a perfect word to say how I feel as well, because we were saying on our stream earlier when the news broke that this definitely was an experiment. It was the first experience of its kind at this scale, at this huge of a budget. And I am so appreciative that they took that chance, like you said there, Martin, and to the specific people who made it happen. I got to interview Matt Martin from the story group, Scott Trowbridge from Imagineering about this at the media event last year. And they were so passionate about it and couldn't wait for everybody to get in there and experience it. And I feel bummed, not only that it's closing down, but for them as well, that it didn't quite, we wanted this to go on for decades, right? Yeah. And it's going to be like a year and change, maybe a year and a half before it closes down after it opened. So I do feel bad that it didn't pan out in that way, but clearly we all love it. Those of us who have done it are fans, but we do have to face this reality that it is going to be shutting down in September. So let's get into the specifics of what that means. To your understanding, the three of you, how do you think this final few months here? So it's May right now. That's June, July, August, September. We've got 4 months left. How do you understand that this will play out? Now, right now, you can't book a Voyage. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. They are shutting down new bookings until May 26th. So that they can go out to everybody who was booked October, November, December, and get them rebooked or figure out whatever the plan is for them. And then on May 26th, they'll open up whatever reservations they have available after that.
And then I don't have in my notes here, but do you know the exact date that will be the final Voyage?
Yeah, it's the 28th through the 30th of September.
Okay, so at least it goes through the end of September. Go ahead there, Martin. Did you have something?
No.
Okay. So yeah, the big question I think that's on everybody's mind that we brought up earlier is what happens to the Galactic Starcruiser. This is not only an experience that takes a couple days, but it's also a physical structure. Yeah. The Halcyon is built into a real building on Walt Disney World property. So what is your theory about what will become of the Galactic Starcruiser building itself?
Well, I'm actually thinking back to the exact wording of the press release, and I don't think, they said Galactic Starcruiser is permanently shutting down, but we were talking about the four of us. I don't think it's entirely off the table that they are going to do some kind of day excursion from Batuu to try to get. I mean, I didn't read anything in that would prevent that or.
Yeah, they have an excellent dining facility. They've obviously got a kitchen. They've got a way to prepare meals, and they've got a stage in the kitchen. So a transport that takes you to Gaia's nightclub or Oga's nightclub or something to that effect that's not hard to imagine, frankly.
Lose the hotel component of it entirely and make it a one-day experience. You get a Gaia performance at a meal, and you get to go on a couple missions. I don't think that's entirely impossible.
Yeah,
I'm not counting on it.
Sure.
But I didn't read anything in that press release that said the building's going to be demolished and everything's going to go away. I mean,
yeah, and they have
go ahead.
they have a pretty extensive the part of the experience is bridge training, where they teach you how to fly the bridge of a starship, and they teach you how to defend against perhaps maybe some ships might fly your way that you don't want to. So that could be something that could be sold as part of that experience as well. I mean, that represents a huge capital investment for Disney, so I could see them trying to utilize that and experience to extend the experience for folks.
Jay Wicks in the chat here says that he's surprised, or he or she or they are surprised that there wasn't a plan. If there wasn't a plan B for the ship or building, that's kind of what you guys are saying. There's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah.
What could become of it? Danny Fandoms said, "Where is SK? Is he safe? Is he all right?"
Oh,
I got my SK right here. So I can't imagine that any of these characters will have made their final appearances ever once this thing shuts down. I'm sure they'll be, integrated into the larger Star Wars continuity, as most things are. My coworker Kyle from Laughing Place made a good point here that the fiscal year for Disney starts on October 1st. So I am not a business-minded person, but I guess that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense.
Well, I can say that if the building is to go away and Lucasfilm and Disney doesn't take the opportunity to actually film a Galactic Starcruiser adventure on board, the story they tell on Galactic Starcruiser, sure, it's something you live, but it could also be told in a really spectacular linear format. And if they don't take the opportunity to do that before they take the entire thing down, that is going to be an incredible lost opportunity.
Yeah, and they also have to find a way to make sure that Captain Keevan and Wraith and Sammy and Gaia live on in other stories.
Yeah,
because there's a huge group of people who will be picketing outside Disney if Gaia doesn't get something else going forward.
Disney has enough picketing happening right now.
Maybe that was a poor choice of words.
Tony Betty asks a great question. Aren't there canonical references now with the High Republic and special comics tying into the overall story? How will that be affected? So yeah, there are plenty of books and comics that have referenced the Halcyon and the Galactic Starcruiser. In fact, Han Solo and Princess Leia had their honeymoon on that ship in the current canon. And I was thinking about this earlier. Now, Galactic Starcruiser will be one of two current canon experiences that are no longer accessible in any form. The first one being the Void virtual reality experience called Secrets of the Empire, which is also part of the current canon, and you can't do it anymore because the Void shut down during the pandemic. It has not, had not come back. It has not come back. Does not seem like it will ever come back. It was a lot of fun.
Really cool.
Yeah.
As well. So this will join that in on a list of things in the current canon that you just can't get anymore without, I guess you could watch videos of this one, which is what makes it different from the Secrets of the Empire, which you couldn't shoot a video of that through the virtual reality goggles. Nope. So let's see. Ryloth Slide lives free in my head. So I'm done.
Yes.
Oh, this is a response to Danny Fandom saying Ryloth Slide Flash Mob, maybe on Batu or
All in.
Oh wait, so somebody had said this is Corey Fraser in the chat. If we just refuse to leave on September 30th, what happens? Yeah, I think somebody tried that with Mr. Toad at Walt Disney World, right? Eventually they'll just get security with the bolt cutters.
I'm okay with that.
So let's we kind of covered this a little bit before, but I want to bring it back up again and talk about the people who made this possible and ask you guys if you have any specific well wishes you want to send out to the cast or the crew or other fans, some of whom are watching and participating in the chat right now.
That list is hours long. How do you pick just a few.
Well, you told a great story recently about the experience we just had. I think that's a great one to point out that you discussed in the episode last night with the gift you were given.
Yeah, let's say a shout out to Belle. There's a cast member named Belle who has, taken one aspect of my character's backstory and made it a recurring thing between voyages in such a special and unique and creative way. I can't thank her enough. I mean, there's the crucial crew member Jay. There's, oh my gosh, the list just goes on
and on and on. Brooke and Crystal and Nelson and
literally. I mean, we could go through every letter of the alphabet, giving you cast and crew that just were phenomenal. One thing that I'm taking away from this is that the recent muster meetup that we had, because we actually had before the May the 4th voyage, we actually hosted a Starcruiser Superfans event at Disney Springs. We rented out Stargazer's bar at Planet Hollywood, the Heroes of the Halcyon did, and we had 80 super fans, and we had some cast and crew show up, and it was such a meaningful moment, more so now than ever, that we got to say thank you to this cast and these crew members, right? Not to the characters, but to them, the actual people that brought it to life. And that is a memory I'm going to cherish forever.
Yeah. And on the recent May the 4th voyage, another great experience that I got to have is I was in the climate simulator, and Cara Murphy, the theatrical director, the person who was responsible for helping the actors come up with their characters and really work, they came on board, and I was beside myself, and I said, "I'm such a huge fan." And they said, "Of my hat?" And I said, "No." And then I was able to go up to him shortly after, and I just say, "You have to know how much this means, that this experience really helps out and really helped change our lives. And we came together as a family and a group because of this." And they obviously were affected, and being able to tell them to their face, to them in person, was just so great.
Yeah, I totally agreed. And thank you for listing those names. They're obviously, it's kind of like thanking people at the Oscars or something. You're never going to get through everybody.
And don't forget Megan and Sage, Robbie and Jason.
So if your name didn't get listed, you can yell at them later.
We will be.
And Monica.
Ann Richmond in the chat here says, "Love you all. So glad we got to experience this place, and so sad for those who will never get this opportunity." But like we said, there's still 4 months left to go. So what are your plans for this final stretch of the Galactic Starcruiser? And is it going to be tough to get? When did you say the bookings are going to start again, Kristine? When that happens, is it going to be tough to get a booking on the Galactic Starcruiser?
Yeah. May 26th. They open up again, and I'm anticipating anarchy.
It's going to be tough
because again, I'm assuming any of those that have voyages planned October 1st through the end of December are going to take a lot of those earlier bookings. Especially if this was their first time going. If it were me, the anticipation would be like, okay, so we have to go a little earlier than we planned, but let's make sure we get on before it disappears. So I think it's going to be a limited number of, rooms yet available once that happens.
Well, and one thing I will say that is important, I would be remiss, we'd all be remiss without pointing out two things. One, on Facebook, there is a group that's set up, the Starcruiser Suite Mate Finder service. And that is a way for people who maybe they don't want to spend the money for an entire room.
Right.
But they want to go ahead and combine and pool forces with other people who want to go on the voyage. That is a great way where you turn an experience that's obviously maybe $4 or $5 grand per room for a couple people into an experience that maybe is $1,000, $1,200, depending on whatever discounts the folks have.
We've heard incredible success stories from that.
Absolutely.
What was the other thing?
The other thing is, please don't be remiss in finding a travel agent.
Yes.
One of the mistakes, Martin has always been our travel agent, which again, thank you, Martin. But there are several travel agents, obviously, who specialize in the experience. I'd hate to play favorites here and name some of them, but if you reach out to those folks, they will be able to make experiences probably much easier than we would by just staying on the phone. So don't forget to go to those travel agents, because you don't pay for that. Again, a lot of people don't understand that the travel agents are paid to help you, and not by you, but by the experience themselves. So that's a great resource for folks.
Yeah, and they're going to be diligent in being up to date as to what's available and when and how to book it and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's a big deal.
I had Galactic Starcruiser on the phone not 3 seconds after I heard this news, and I was reminded of the hours and hours and hours wait it took right when they were first opening to get through to the reservations line. So I did learn from Galactic Starcruiser the value of using a travel agent.
Now, let's say that date holds fast. It's the end of September. This thing is shutting down. But my question to you guys, to your knowledge, if there is a demand, now we know that the demand is going to rise at least a little bit, knowing that it's shutting down. But is there space and is there capacity among the crew and the people working there for them to add in voyages in between now, between now and the end of the run? Would they be able to add voyages in there, or is that not a possibility?
I don't think that's a possibility, because they were switching to 2 a week. Pardon me, 2 a week starting in October, but they don't have that calendar. There are two.
Okay.
There are 2 calendar in July. They had canceled a couple of voyages, and in September. So perhaps they'll add extra cruises there. So there's a small amount of capacity, but who knows if they'll be able to use it.
I want to point out in the chat here, Gabriella Fleury. Now, I never made the connection until today that the acronym is Hoth for Heroes of the Halcyon. How did that get past me? I don't know.
It's funny. The moment I realized that, we were like a month into the podcast. I was like doing marketing stuff, and I'm like, guys, do you understand what our acronym is? We're the Hoth team.
They're awesome.
But Gabriella said that you 3 are like a family to her.
We feel the same.
I don't want to assume anybody's pronouns, but I'm so glad that I got to meet you all in person. So yeah, really wonderful that you guys have fostered this community as well. I'm very impressed with what you all have done to spread the word and to build this family of Galactic Starcruiser fans. So this is it. We do have these final 4 months, but as of today, we got to start saying goodbye. Do you guys have anything else that you want to say about the Galactic Starcruiser before we wrap up this discussion here?
If you haven't been, go now, or you will regret not having gone. Because
100%. In the words of Ferris Bueller, if you have the means, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And oh wow, Kyle with some breaking news that we had anticipated as a possibility. Oops, but I am shocked to hear it as well. This is crazy. Lucasfilm not Lucasfilm, but Disney has made the choice to remove the first season and only season of the Willow series from Disney Plus. That's nuts to me. But that's a whole other topic of conversation. Disney going through a tumultuous time right now, and we'll see how that all shakes out. Let's see. To wrap up this discussion of the Galactic Starcruiser, I want to point everybody toward, a lot of people in the chat are already listeners of Heroes of the Halcyon, but if you're not, please check them out. And I want to ask you guys, what is your plan after September? I'm sure you're going to keep this going, but it's going to be more of a nostalgia thing. Will you branch out into covering other topics? Or I guess, what are your initial thoughts about the evolution of your podcast, which is devoted to this one thing that's ending in 4 months? That's my question.
Funny you should mention that.
Okay.
And you might see us all coyly looking at one another, but we are meeting this Saturday. We're having our one of the things that we started this conversation and our love of Starcruiser was over breakfast meetings. And on Saturday morning, we're having our breakfast meeting about our own venture that we're trying to set up.
It's funny because we first started kind of getting an idea of what's next at our last Disneyland trip.
Yeah.
We did a prep trip, for Starcruiser by going to Disneyland, and we met some of our
we met
friends
you, Mike.
there.
Yeah.
That was actually the trip. That's where we kind of had the genesis of an idea of what comes next. So stay tuned, because we'll be here.
So, where can people go and find Heroes of the Halcyon, just in case they don't know?
Let me get this out here. You can always email us at heroesofthehalcyon@gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram at Heroes of the Halcyon, on Twitter at Halcyon_heroes, or on YouTube at Heroes of the Halcyon.
Perfect. Thank you,
Recorded,
Kristine.
guys. I say it that way
That was
every time.
amazing.
was good.
You one-shotted
You
that.
did.
But one more comment I want to make is that no matter
Yes.
what we do in the future, oh, it was so good until the end.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This Halcyon family is not going anywhere. So even if they take the building away, we are not going anywhere. And now that we've met you and you are part of our family, we're not letting you go.
So I'm not going anywhere either. Yeah, and I am very, very glad to know all of you, and I hope to meet everybody in the chat as well that I haven't met. And yeah, thank you for reaching out to me. And this is going to be the end of our discussion of the Galactic Starcruiser, but please don't go anywhere because I still have some stuff I want to talk to you guys about. But yeah, just to wrap this up, I couldn't be more appreciative for the very existence of this idea of the Galactic Starcruiser, and then for the fans and everybody who embraced it. So thank you as well. And oh, you got it, you got the tattoo. I haven't taken that step yet, but maybe.
We'll get you, Mike.
All right.
We know.
So, Drew, you were on the show very recently.
What?
So you're welcome to hang out. But I have some questions for Kristine and Martin. It's the 5 Star Wars questions. Usually we do this at the top of the show, but I wanted to get the sad stuff out of the way. Are you guys ready for this?
Ready.
Okay, so this is level 2. You guys have been on the show once previously when we talked about D23 Expo last year. This is level 2 of the 5 Star Wars questions. Number 1, what is your favorite line of dialogue in a Star Wars movie or TV show? Now I'll let Martin start this one and give Kristine a moment to recoup.
To me, it's a slam dunk. This is where the fun begins.
No. If I'm not mistaken, that's said by both Han and Obi-Wan, right? Am I wrong about that?
Hey, Han.
So which version of that?
Whoa.
I actually like the Han Solo one.
Okay.
This is where the fun begins. That
okay.
Totally. I was 5.5 when I first saw Star Wars, and it absolutely blew that kid's mind, and it still does to this day.
Am I wrong about Obi-Wan having said that in the prequels, or was that?
I think he might.
Was it Obi-Wan or was it Anakin?
Oh, maybe it was Anakin. I'm not a prequel guy, but I knew it popped up somewhere else. But yeah,
it's a Han Solo line.
Han Solo, perfect. I love it. And what was the reasoning behind that? I'm sorry, I missed it.
It just encapsulates Star Wars for me. Star Wars is where the fun begins.
This is where the fun begins. I love it. All right, Kristine, you ready to go? What's your favorite line of dialogue?
Got it. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
I am no Jedi.
Ooh, nice. I love it.
I'm obsessed with Clone Wars. I love it so much.
Oh, that line reading was fantastic. Oh,
Ashley.
Wow.
Okay.
All right, let's go to number 2. Which Star Wars planet would you choose to live on and why? This time we'll start with Kristine.
I got this one. You ready?
Yes.
Lothal.
Oh, nice. That's a good choice. Why is that?
The Lothcats, of course.
Lothcats. All right.
Of course. And the Lothals and all of the other. Yes.
How about you, Martin?
Honestly, I'd like to live on Tatooine because it's not that different from Arizona, where we live.
True. Very true.
I just want to go to Tashi Station, everyone. those power converters aren't going to pick up themselves.
Number 3, what if you had to choose a favorite era in this this came up earlier in the conversation. So if you have to choose a favorite era in the Star Wars storytelling timeline, what would it be and why? And the examples are the Old Republic, which is thousands of years before the original trilogy. Then you've got the High Republic, a couple hundred years before the original trilogy. The prequel era, you've got the Reign of the Empire, which is between the prequels and the original trilogy. Then you've got the OT or original trilogy. Then you've got the New Republic, which is the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, everything that's taking place between the original trilogy and the sequels. Then you've got the Star Wars sequel trilogy. And I also like to give the option of choosing the Legends timeline, which is the old expanded universe that has since been kind of decanonized, but it's still out there for people who enjoy it, like myself. How about you? Let's start with Martin this time. What's your favorite era in Star Wars?
I am an original trilogy guy through and through, but in this case, I mean, if a blaster was put to my head, I would have to say Reign of the Empire. The Clone Wars and Rebels absolutely blow my mind, and Rogue One, I mean, is such a perfect encapsulation of all that is Star Wars. I mean, it Rogue One couldn't exist without this incredible foundation that was there. But to me, Clone Wars, Rebels, Rogue One, to me, that's the most incredible storytelling in the saga for me.
Great. How about you, Kristine?
He stole my answer.
I stole your answer.
I knew he did.
Stole my
I
answer.
knew he did. So I was just waiting to see.
I'm just shrinking.
Clone Wars quote and everything.
Oh.
Grr.
Samesies.
Yeah, I think for me, Andor is one of those series that just was kind of and I've heard so many people say it, is the Star Wars we didn't know we wanted. And I really love the kind of grungy idea of all the stuff that happened before, all that happened before the OG, I love that so much.
How are you guys enjoying the Bad Batch, since that takes place during that sort of that big gap between the prequels and the sequels?
I love it. I mean, the season 2 took a teeny bit of time to find its footing in my mind, but it ended super, super strong. Can't wait to see how that whole storyline ends, but I'm a huge fan of the Bad Batch.
Yeah, big time.
Nice. Okay, number 4. Which Star Wars creature would you have as a pet? And Kristine, I'm guessing you're going to say Lothcat.
No,
okay.
I'm not.
Okay.
You're not.
I know. So I don't know if you can really call it. I mean, he's a creature, but apparently he's also a Jedi.
Oh.
Sorry, what was the answer? I missed it.
He's a creature, but he's also a Jedi.
Okay. Yes.
In fact, he's a young Jedi.
Okay.
And he's blue, and I'm in love with him.
All right. I'm going to call you out on a technicality here, and
Nubs.
I blame myself because I didn't give the qualification here. It can't be a sentient species.
You can't have Nubs as a pet.
Yeah. You got to pick a non-sentient creature.
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
a friend. Okay.
Do you got one, Martin?
Yeah. Do you have one, babe?
I'm going to steal Lothcat if you don't, because
That's fine.
I want one of those so bad.
I know, I do too.
I
do too.
I have to interject really quick, Mike. I loved when I was on the recent episode and I said Lothcat. You said, I think I need to change that question because everybody says Lothcat.
I feel like a punk saying the answer. I'm like, shouldn't, but no.
What about a baby Wampa?
That would be interesting.
I mean, it would be adorable. And if you got it as a baby,
right, sure.
then even as it grew up and became like a big, man killer beast, it would probably be okay for you, right?
It would
I don't know. Have you seen that documentary Grizzly Man? I don't know if that kind of stuff works out.
I haven't, but I have seen Cocaine Bear, so I could see where that would go awry.
Okay, Cocaine Wampa. I want to see that so bad.
All right, last of the 5 Star Wars questions, level 2. This is one of my favorites. If you were Kathleen Kennedy, if you were the president or whatever of Lucasfilm, and you could bring in any creative person you want, famous or not famous or anything, any creative person comes into the office and could pitch you their own Star Wars story in movies and TV, books, or anything, who would you bring in? What creative person would you like to see tackle the Star Wars franchise? Martin, wait, you're pointing at Kristine first. Kristine first?
Okay. She doesn't want me to steal her answer.
Okay, Kristine, you go first.
Guillermo del Toro.
Nice.
I want to see all the Star Wars creatures based on Guillermo's brilliant brain.
That would be a great one.
Okay, I'm ashamed now. But frankly, we were listening a podcast that we really like to listen to is Thank the Maker. And they did an episode, I believe it was today, actually, that we were listening to. And one of them had a really fascinating idea that I'd really like to see happen is so much of the current continuity has been absorbed from the legend stuff, like the Timothy Zahn, Heir to the Empire books. We've got Thrawn coming in. There's several elements actually from the Zahn trilogy that they're recanonizing as it were. I would absolutely love to see Timothy Zahn get a crack at a screenplay. And again, not every a point they made is not every book author is made to do screenplays, but I would really love to see Timothy Zahn get a crack at what's happened with his creations since then, and for him to play with them today. I would love to see what he could come up with in the universe.
So that's a great idea. Yeah, I would love to see that. I think that counts. Yeah, I love that idea. I would love to see him branch out into other media. Certainly created some of my favorite Star Wars stories over the years. All right, that's the end of the 5 Star Wars questions, and we're going to jump right into our final segment here on Who's the Bossk this week. It's called First Steps into a Larger World. This is just where we talk about the media that we've been consuming and or enjoying outside of Star Wars. I know it's a rare treat, not a rare treat, a rare a rare case that we ever talk about something outside of Star Wars, but we're going to do it right here in our usual final segment. My example is going to be The Legend of Zelda. It's the new Legend of Zelda game for the Switch. It's called Tears of the Kingdom. It's just gorgeous. It's just you get lost in this game and you never want to leave. I've been spending the bulk of the past week or so playing this. It's just beautiful, loving every minute of it. I wish I had more time to play. But yeah, I can't recommend it enough, especially if you're a fan of like open world adventure games. You guys know what The Legend of Zelda is. I don't have to explain it to you. So let's go to you guys. Let's start with Drew this time since he hasn't gotten a chance to talk for a while. What have you been enjoying lately? Anything there, Drew?
I'm going to go with games as well. And one of the games that I've been just digging into is actually a board game. It's a solo board game, and it's called Final Girl. What Van Ryder Games has done with Final Girl is they've made a story where you're basically the final girl in a horror movie, and your job is to try to rescue as many other campers or find Carolyn in the attic or find the organism before it takes over the hidden base. And they've mashed up a lot of current and older classic horror movies, and it's a fabulous solo experience that especially if you can throw on a soundtrack behind you while you're playing the game, you're watching Hans come at you closer with that sledgehammer, but you've got one more point of health. It's such a fabulous game. I highly recommend it.
Oh, I got to check that out. That sounds right up my alley. I love board games. I love horror, that kind of stuff. So maybe Halloween time, I'll check that out. How about you, Kristine? Anything you've been enjoying lately? Reading, watching, playing?
I'm going to say I am loving this season of Ted Lasso.
Okay.
Yeah, love Ted Lasso. And it's been a great season. I think we've got, maybe 2 episodes left?
That sounds right to me. We have been watching it as well. I really enjoy that show too. I think my only nitpick is I kind of wish they had stuck with the 10 episode season, which they did in season 1. I think this season 2 and 3 have been a little over. I don't know.
There's something in a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like season 1 was so tight and compact. And I just feel like they could have followed through on that and everybody would have walked away happy. I do still think it's a really great show, and I'm looking forward to finding out what happens in the finale. Martin, what have you been up to pop culture wise lately?
We spent so much time prepping for this last voyage that a lot of video games went unplayed for a while, but I'm absolutely loving Jedi Survivor right now. And also I'm a huge fan of the Horizon Zero Dawn series, and they just released a fantastic DLC for Horizon Forbidden West called The Burning Shores. And I'm having a fantastic time with that as well. So The Burning Shores and Jedi Survivor are on right now.
Fantastic. Awesome. I'm also loving Jedi Survivor too, but I was like, I don't know how far I am into the game. Love it. Absolutely adore it. Was looking forward to going back and playing it every time. And then Zelda came out. I was like, sorry, Cal, you get pushed to the side. I will return to you at some point. So that's going to bring us to the end of this week's episode of Who's the Bossk. I think the thing that I really want to say to you guys specifically is I'm sorry that today had to happen, that we had to have this conversation. I know how passionate you are about the Galactic Starcruiser, and I feel terrible that this thing that you love is going away. That's just a terrible thing to see. So you have my condolences. I love it too. I'm definitely going to try, maybe, hopefully, to go back one more time before the whole thing wraps up. So I wish that for you as well, if circumstances play out the way you want them to. But thanks again for coming on the show and talking about this heartbreaking news today. All three of you, definitely thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Star Wars Galaxy is a big place.
Yeah, it very much is. And I hope to see you guys. You hit me up last time you were in town, and we had dinner together. So let's do that again. And
We will.
yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
And just one more note, Mike.
Yes, please.
In case anybody has forgotten, we all know Starcruiser people
Are the best people.
No argument here. Next week on Who's the Bossk, we may finally get to that Young Jedi Adventures episode that I was planning. And then I am also planning an episode about Star Wars Visions, Volume 2. So look for that, both of those coming up within the next couple weeks, I'm sure. As always, please visit laughingplace.com for all your Disney news and opinions. And I am on Twitter at Who's the Bossk Pod. Thanks so much for listening. Please go check out Heroes of the Halcyon wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Mike Celestino, and see you next time. Bye. Let's end the broadcast. Thank you, everybody out there in the chat. Bye.